Hey, notable leaders. Today we're talking about how to have great copy on your sales pages and in your marketing that will drive your reader forward, or your ideal avatar forward, to purchase from you without feeling like you're salesy at all. Let's get into it. I always need to remind myself to continue to improve my copywriting skills. And I think that's true of any marketer, is to always be working on your copywriting skills and improving those. So some important key things to think about when you're thinking about your social media copy is, where is the person who is interacting with that piece of copy? Where are they receiving it? And I see a lot of people make the mistake that they will write a piece of copy or create a piece of content. This kind of works the same. And they'll use that exact same thing in an email, in a post on Facebook, turn it into a video for YouTube, and they're really not changing anything. The copy, the words are identical. And while this can work, and I'm all about the repurposing, the challenge here is that depending on where your reader's at, what platform they're reading it on, their state of mind, all of those things can really come into play into how that message is received. So we'll take email, for example. Email tends to be something that can be a little bit more long form. Do I suggest you write a super long email? Definitely not. But if you need to convey a little bit more detail, have some clickable links, things like that, you could put that into an email, and that person likely has a little bit more time. Most people try to carve out some time to go through their email each day, and they're gonna have a little bit more time, hopefully. So maybe that can get across there. As opposed to on social media, you wouldn't wanna have a really, really, really long post. In addition, you have to think about how your copy looks visually, because sometimes it can get overwhelming visually, which means the reader is likely to just skip on past. What I mean by this is that we've all seen people who write an entire dissertation of a social media post and they don't even put it into paragraphs or breaks. It's literally one long typed out chunk of text. And when we see that, it takes up the entire section of our phone and it becomes overwhelming to even want to think to read it. Plus, if you've ever tried to read it, you're like losing your spot in this jumble of message. The opposite that you can do here on social media especially is to really give it a lot of white space. Now, I give white space to my emails, to my social media, and I try to think about how is that person interacting with that piece of content. For the most part, social media, they're interacting on their phone. It's a teeny tiny little format, right? It's not a whole page width. So I have shorter paragraphs. I might do one or maybe two sentences before doing the enter and leaving a nice big blank space. In an article that you're posting to a media site, if you're writing an article, you can create that to be more in the flow of like a typical writing assignment. You can have those normal paragraphs because someone's reading it on a full screen. Same thing with email. Now, email is hit or miss. You don't know, is that person reading it in their phone or are they reading it on their computer? But you can get a little bit more long structured in an email than you can on social media. But also you have to think about a couple of things when you're writing these social media posts, when you're writing copy for your funnel, for your page. You've got to really kind of understand, where is that reader at? So if it is social media, if they're on LinkedIn, their mental state is going to be different than their mental state if they are surfing on TikTok or Instagram. Instagram and TikTok tend to be, you're not posting a post on TikTok, you're doing a video, but copy is the same. You still need to write copy or have copy for your video, have intent behind it. But over there, it's definitely more of a feel-good kind of platform. TikTok, people want to learn something quick. They want to feel like they had that aha moment, or just were entertained for a moment. Over on LinkedIn, it tends to be a little bit more business focused, a little bit more business minded. On Facebook, people are looking for updates about life, about family. People use Facebook a lot to vent about something. I don't know if I would suggest that for copy, although you can play on that strength for a little bit to be able to pull up people's emotions. So it's important to understand, where is that reader? And then the second thing that's really important is, who is reading this copy, or who's my ideal reader? So out on social media, of course, we can't pick who sees that. We're gonna hope the algorithm figures it out and puts it in front of our ideal person. But a lot of times someone will say, oh, well, there's so many people who could see this. There's so many perfect people for this thing. I'm gonna talk to everybody. And what ends up happening is that it doesn't really grab anyone's attention. Something for everybody is actually for no one. Instead, you want to be really specific about who you're having that conversation with. The same thing is true if you're writing an email or creating a video. Who am I talking to? Because that will allow you to draw on some of the pieces that we're going to dive into next and figure out how you're going to write that copy. So the next thing that's really important is to make sure that each section of your copy, each sentence is really driving that person forward to the next. The same thing is true for video. When you think of storytelling, you don't need to include all the fluff and the extra that doesn't mean anything. And you also don't want to include details that you're not going to come back to. A great example of this is I actually saw a video post of a woman who talked about how she had basically gone from nothing, from single mom, from failure to building out a successful business. And she told this story about how she got pregnant when she was 15. The dad was not in the picture, and she didn't know what she was going to do with her life. Her parents really wanted her to go to college and all that. And instead, she just decided to take a couple years off and travel the world, and then was able to come back and now has started this business. Well, what she wanted everyone to get out of this video was how she had gone from nothing and become a successful businesswoman, and was hoping that people would join her program or buy her course. The problem is, everyone in the comments was fixated on what did you do with your baby for the couple of years that you traveled the world. Now, she took it really offensively. She got really negative about it. Why is everyone fixated on this? Why, you wouldn't ask a man these questions. The challenge here is that in her story, she brought up the fact that she had been a single mom, which is fine. And she also brought up the fact that the dad wasn't in the picture and she had no help. But she traveled the world for a couple of years. So it doesn't mean that you can't do those things, but if you're going to open loop some of those pieces, and her goal obviously was to get you to understand that even with all of those challenges, she was able to build a successful business. Well, the problem is no one heard the back half. They got stuck, fixated on her talking about being the single mom that had no help and traveling the world. Your mind automatically says, where was your baby? Did you take your baby with you? It's not an accusational question. It's simply if I'm trying to figure out how to do this for myself, who watched the kid? How did that work, right? And so she got very defensive because it wasn't the part of her story she wanted people to fixate on, but because she had started that piece of her story and then didn't explain it, now people didn't have context. And so her entire piece of copy essentially there turned very negative. No one was going where she wanted them to. They were really fixated on something else. So it's important that when you do kind of map out that journey that your potential reader is going to go on, that if there are those things that are going to trip someone up or that they're going to fixate on, either you remove them from your copy so that they don't get tripped up on that, or you help explain those things. She could have said, and I was grateful enough that my parents decided to take their grandbaby for a couple of years while I traveled and got myself figured out. Or I was able to take my baby with me because it was pre-COVID and travel was easier. I don't know what her story was. She never explained it. Right? But you can come in and expect someone's going to have a question about that. How can I answer it so that they don't get stuck in this moment of the story? They still learn the thing they need to learn about that I did struggle, that I did have a hard time, and now I'm here. So if you're able to do that, you can really further your story. You can really help that reader relate to you. Again, this was a video, but this would be the same if you were writing an article or making a post. You've got to kind of understand where that person is coming from and how they're going through the journey with you. And again, who is your ideal reader? Who's your ideal person to absorb that piece of copy? Now, this is incredibly true when you get to a funnel. On your sales funnel or your web page, you really need to make sure that it's congruent first with how someone got there. So a lot of times what I'll see is that people will start thinking about some really good content, some really good copy that they're going to post on social media to drive traffic to their thing. And as they're thinking about it, they're thinking about all sorts of different topics and all sorts of different things, and they're posting about them. But the page that they're sending people to doesn't talk about those things. Those things are not reiterated there. And so the person who came from a post or an email or an ad lands on your page and is not congruent with the message that you had posted about. So first thoughts is, did I go to the right place? Did that link work? Did it click through right? Am I in the right spot, right? You almost want to be like, hey, you came from this, you've made it here. Way to go. And sometimes this might require duplicating that funnel page, especially if you target different groups of people or different demographics. You may need to have a couple of different landing pages so that when they come through from a certain post or you reach a certain demographic and who you're talking to, again, what they land on is congruent. I see a lot of times people say, oh, well, my product's for this type of person and this type of person and this type of person. That's fantastic, but you will need 3 landing pages that each speak to those different types of people so that those people feel like they are represented when they land on your page. And then as far as copy on your page goes, you want to make sure that it really flows, that there's a great hook, something that catches that reader, that person, and keeps them there, right? Oh, that's what I'm here for. That's really what their mind should be saying when they see your headline, your hook. Yes, that's why I came. That's why I clicked. That's what I'm here for. Yes, that speaks to me. Okay, followed up typically by like a smaller headline, right, below it that kind of clarifies the initial hook, maybe leaves some open curiosity. Curiosity is great to get people to keep reading, okay? And then from there, you wanna go ahead and hit on a couple of pain points, and you always wanna make sure that each thing, each line, each section of your page is driving them forward to the next thing. Your goal in the headline is not to sell them on the thing you're selling. It's too hard. You can't do it. Your goal is to open up their mind to be interested enough to read the next line. That's your goals of the headline. And then the next line gives them a little bit more information. And then you hit them with a pain point. And then you follow it up with a solution. And you slowly bring them through that journey to where you can say, hey, now you know the only answer is this thing. Click here to grab it, right? A great example of this that I saw recently was actually a video of a guy who does dog training. And he started off the video by putting his dogs, he had 2 pit bulls, and he put them down in a sit position. He said, this is a sit stay, and he started to walk away from them. And the cameraman, the dogs are just sitting in his driveway. And he's explaining why it's so important that the dogs remain there, why it needs to be this way for safety, that if your dog ever got off leash, even if you plan to never have your dog off leash, if they ever got their leash out of your hands or got off leash or got out of your yard or any of these things, that you would still maintain control over your dog for their safety, for your safety, for the other people's safety. So he had put them down in this sit-stay position and was walking away. He said, I can look at them, I can look away. I know that they're gonna stay there. They're going to stay until I tell them that they can be free. And he's talking to the camera. He continues to walk away. He actually comes back and walks the other side of the road, walks right past them. And then he tells them to come. And they don't go running all over the place. They immediately come to him. And once they get to him, he says heel. And they start walking with him, right? He has full control over that. And he shows it as he's explaining why it's so important. And then he says, so if you want to make sure that your pet is this well trained, that if your pet ever gets out of your yard or off leash, that you can recall them, that you will never have to worry about them, getting into a situation that you can't handle. If you need that, I would absolutely love to help you. You can check the link and book a consult with us, right? Now, it didn't feel salesy because he really hooked you in by what he was doing. He actually used the visual as the hook. He explained things while he was walking through why it was important. And then he told you where you could contact him to buy. And the greatest thing was all of the people in the comments said, I just booked a consult with you. I just bought your course. I'm really excited to work with you. This, that, and the other. Nobody said, hey, that's really salesy. Hey, I have questions about why you have dogs, right? Nobody attacked him about his dogs being off leash, any of that. All the things that you would think might negatively pop up didn't, because he helped clarify that as he went through that video. So when you start to think about the copy for your programs, your offers, it's really important to think about kind of those 3 things. And I'll break it down for you one more time. It's where is that person receiving the copy? Really important. Like, is it social media? Is it an email? Is it a text? Right? Who is receiving it? Really, really important. Are we talking to the right people? And is it clear that for the person on the other end that we're talking directly to them? So who's receiving it? And then making sure that we really kind of just take them from that initial grab, that initial headline, and walk them through those steps. That each new section, each new piece of copy drives them to the next thing in such a way that when we do get to the end and we say, hey, here's how you can do this thing, we make the offer, we give them an option to purchase. It doesn't feel salesy, it doesn't feel pushed, it just very naturally flows. As always, make sure to like and subscribe to this video, to this channel, because I'm always posting more things about different ways to beef up and improve your social media content, turn more followers into buyers.